Hey, it's Rachel. We're back with the Next Set podcast. I'm stoked. Today we have Greg here from Brickwall CrossFit. Greg has a fascinating story, and I've been so excited to do this podcast for a long time. We're also joined by Shar. Shar is a returning guest with some information that I really want you to share with us, and I'll kind of pry you for that a little bit. These podcasts are changing lives. They are really reaching the people that we want to reach, and Revive is kind of the topic of conversation today, as it has been for a while. I was telling Greg the backstory of Revive. Revive has been in production for not very long, but the research behind it has been around for a long time. In fact, the base or main ingredient was formulated in Japan, and it was used like for people with heart disease and brain issues. And so we have years and years of really good data on the main ingredient. And then studies with tens of thousands of people from Harvard and the U on how effective it is for things like anxiety and depression. So it's not a substitute for pharmaceutical, but it's definitely a nutrient that is required for your brain. In fact, we know that like 92% of Americans don't get enough of this main ingredient in their regular diet. So we're showing up with deficient brains. And of course, we're going to see anxiety and depression. We know at Elevation here in Utah that some of those antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds don't work as well as they do at sea level. And there's a reason for that we can dive into. But Shar, thanks again for coming back.
Of course. I'm so happy to be back.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks.
So tell us how you met Greg and how, like, what really excites you about having Greg on the show today?
Sure. Well, I'm really excited that he is joining you guys today. And how we met was really through what we were both doing. And, I work with women all the time. I have a couple of groups that we go deep diving into vulnerability. And I was really taken aback with Greg and what he was doing with members of his own community. So through Brickwall CrossFit, as well as, his everyday life, we connected on the lack of connection that's out there in our communities, whether it's men, women, people, right? People in general. Right. And we were just talking the other day about the similarities between what women face and what men face, and just the lack of connection.
So let's talk about that, because I really am attracted to your model of connecting people for the purpose of connection and no other. And why do we need that? Like, why do we need that now more than ever?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we connect a lot through social media and through our technology sources that we have. And we have this fake persona, right, of what people see from the outside looking in. But without that filter, there's a lot going on that people don't talk about. And just day-to-day struggles, just simple things that we don't share enough one-on-one and in person. And so we have had many conversations about the powerful connections that you can have with other people if you sit down and you listen and you share and you invite them to be vulnerable.
Right.
So I was really happy to hear that Greg is doing that in the community for people in general. And then we just connected over our love for Revive.
So you've had some really big hits lately, emotionally and mentally, and you're like so resilient. And really that's the purpose of this podcast is to interview people who like just are the iconic, resilient human. And so because it's not what happens to us that defines us, it's how we react to what happens to us and how we turn those disadvantages into advantages. It's up to you, but if you want to like briefly, like from 100,000 feet, like kind of clue our listeners in on like maybe some of the stuff that you've had to experience lately and how Revive has been like in your quiver in terms of resiliency, because I've kind of like
wow. Yeah. So there's a lot that has happened since I was on last. So I was on the podcast talking about, my struggles with a divorce that happened years ago, and my struggles with trying to reconnect with myself again. And that same partner recently passed away. Unexpected.
So sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, it was one of the most difficult times in my life, and it's still very sensitive. It's very recent, just a few weeks actually. So that has shaken me to my core, and I have to be around people who support me and that I can be vulnerable with and that are real. And Revive, along with the steps that I've taken to regain my self-connection, are still there. But it's 10 times harder to do those small things per day during grief. I've never lost anyone as close to me before until this recent death. Even though he wasn't my partner anymore, we were still very close and we shared a life together. And it brought empathy beyond measure for people who have lost, especially the veterans that I know. It brought me close to the point where I thought myself, should I be in this world anymore? You know, I've never had those thoughts before. So for me, that was a different level of self-care. Allowing other people to help you became detrimental in my daily life. So I'm doing great, just trying to be close to those people that support me and be vulnerable always.
That's such a tender place to be right now.
Yeah.
And I think I just want to offer you like my love and support and
Thank you.
appreciation for being open, because we don't share those things as humans with each other. Like, you're right, like the social media persona that everything's good. We're just going to like keep it, on the surface. Everybody is mourning or suffering something right now. And I think that's the common message that I'm seeing in our podcast, or the amount of human suffering going on is like beyond what I've ever seen before. I'm not that young, but I've never seen this level of like human suffering before, and how we are dealing with it, how we are taking those disadvantages and turning them into advantages and helping us redefine what life is for each of us individually and collectively. And
everyone has experienced a loss.
Recently, very recently.
It's pretty crazy. And I really enjoy talking to my friends like Greg about these sorts of things, because it surprises me the stories that I've heard from other people as I've been going through this grief. That's the only way to get through it, is to hear other people's stories and to offer support. And the level of the empathy that has come about is incredible. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to hear from Greg about his journey.
And thanks for your servant leadership. I would call it servant leadership. I think you're so amazing for getting out there and saying, like, I'm going to initiate these connections. Rather than waiting for somebody to connect you to others, you are inviting people into your space to connect, and that's a hero to me. So with that, Greg, you're doing the same thing, just in a different form. Tell us about Brickwall CrossFit and what your purpose for bringing people together is.
Brickwall CrossFit is everything to me. I absolutely love, adore, and cannot say enough great things about it in regards to what we are as a fitness community and what we are as a community in regards to support, in regards to, honestly, nobody cares about whether you make it to the games, whether you make it to regionals. Doesn't matter. What matters is what your results are, and what matters is who you are as a person and what you want to do and what your goals are. And that's what I love about Brickwall CrossFit.
How did you get there? How did you get to that? Like you have just it's an empathetic confidence. It's a humble confidence that you exude.
Well, thank you.
As do all of our guests. It's so strange, but it's a humility matched with confidence. Like, where did that come from?
Well, I was a fitness director and personal trainer for a fitness gym, for a what I call a big box gym for a long time, and I was not very humble at all. And I took people through personal training, all sorts of stuff, and then one day I had this female who was about 110 pounds, and she was a personal trainer of mine, and she took me through a workout, and I puked twice. She didn't, and she beat me by over 10 minutes. And so I got a little humbled there. And what I can say is, through CrossFit and through the training that I've gone through over the past, 9, 10 years, I've developed a level of humbleness where I want my goals to be met, but in all actuality, it's more important for other people's goals to be met as well.
Wow.
And to meet those goals together, because there's nothing better. Like you climb Mount St. Helens, or not, sorry. What's that giant K2 mountain?
Mm-hmm.
Everest?
Everest. There we go. Thank you. You climb Everest all alone. What are you? You're a single person. But if you climb Everest with 2 people, or 3 or 4, then you're a party. And you have somebody else to connect with in regards to that experience. And that's what I think the human experience is connecting with people instead of just connecting with yourself. You need to connect with yourself, absolutely. But really sharing something with somebody is one of the most important things that we can do as humans.
How do we crack out of that kind of John Wayne, like do it yourself, don't ask for help, just like keep going? If your finger gets cut off, put it in your back pocket and keep trudging. How do we break that cycle?
That's tough. I mean, that's one of the things I actually learned in the military is you can't do everything by yourself. You have to have the support of your team. You have to have the support of somebody else. Because you need somebody watching your back. And I think today, because of the emphasis placed on social media in particular, where everybody is so perfect by themselves, that it takes away from the teamwork that it needs and the village that it takes to, raise that baby or raise that puppy.
What did you learn from the military that you now apply to your CrossFit gym?
Almost everything. In regards to, there needs to be a period of breaking someone down. Someone needs to feel humility.
So is that the humility stage where you're humbled?
No, yeah, I mean,
you're broken.
you are broken to a certain extent, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, or mentally.
Let's dive into that a little more, because that's such a scary place for a human being to be broken, vulnerable, split open, splayed out. What's the advantage of that?
To understand, in my mind, to understand that you're going to reach a low. But it's how prepared you are to reach that low that allows you to bring yourself back up. If you're not prepared, if you don't understand that you're going to get defeated every now and then, if you don't have that mentality, then you're not preparing yourself. And so it's allowing yourself to break that boundary and allowing yourself to feel defeat that will actually reach you up for more success.
Wow. So that reminds me, I have a friend who is a best friend who is a refugee from Bangladesh during Civil War, and she's like experienced everything.
Yeah.
And with a recent dive, she's done everything right, but just to see her lose everything and start again, I was like, how do you do this? And she said, once you reach that point, you know how to do it. It doesn't break you. It
Absolutely.
actually creates this bottom where oh, okay, I've touched the ground of hell. Know what that feels like. I'm not broken. Even my husband said the other day, I said, what have you learned from all these defeats? And he said, I thought I was going to die, but I didn't die. So how do you, once you allow somebody to reach that humility or that splayed out, flattened place, what's the next step?
You give them a helping hand. You got to give them a helping hand. Everybody needs one. You show them, hey, just because you reach this space doesn't mean you can't get back up. Doesn't mean that you can't take a step forward and improve yourself. We reached the bottom. It's okay. You reached the bottom, so you now know what failure is, but let's have some success.
Is failure such a bad thing? I think
No.
in our society, we label it as like it's a moral injury or a deficiency when we fail. Can we learn to fail better?
Wow, that's a really great question. I think that if we accept that
What is failure?
failure to achieve what you want, failure to have the desired results that you want, and when you're not, like Thomas Edison, all right, how many times did he fail at creating a light bulb? He didn't fail, he just figured out about 1,000 ways not to do it. And when you have that type of attitude, you'll be successful. When you treat failure as a negative, that's when it becomes a negative.
Is it a stepping stone to success?
Absolutely.
Why?
I don't know any entrepreneur, I don't know any inventor, I don't know anybody that hasn't failed in their life.
So can we redefine failure as a good thing?
That's what you have to do. You have to say, hey, just because I failed doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, doesn't mean that I'm a true failure in humanity. It just means that I need to figure out a better way.
So you guys have it all together. Like I'm looking at you and I'm like, who wouldn't want to be you guys, right? How has failure defined you for the better?
It's helped me understand that I just need to move in a different direction. It's helped me understand that what I thought was so concrete
Wow.
wasn't
That's
concrete.
profound.
Because I get in those modes where I'm like, I know the way. Boom. So I go right on it, and then all of a sudden I fall flat on my face, and I'm like, well, damn, okay, that didn't work. So what is going to work? What went wrong with the direction that I went in? And not everything goes wrong. Maybe out of 15 steps, maybe 3 or 4 things go wrong. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to reinvent the steps that you took, and maybe the timing of them. Mm-hmm. So maybe in regards to a deadlift.
Yeah.
Because that's that's my go-to. Maybe you want to deadlift 415 pounds. So you try to deadlift 415 pounds. However, your max deadlift is 225. Well, let's not try to deadlift 415 right off the bat.
So it's really identifying so not comparing yourself to somebody else.
Right.
Not comparing your success to somebody else's success.
Right.
How do we do that in this like social media driven life?
I'd like to say turn off social media.
Nice.
But unfortunately, as a business owner in this day and age, you can't.
So how do you do it with your clients? How do you get them to focus on their goal and not the person next to them?
Repetition.
Wow. Talk to me about that.
Continued repetition on what their goals are and not what everybody else's are.
How do you get them out of that phase of compare and contrast?
Continued repetition. Because everybody does, and that's one of the things I love about CrossFit. It's also one of the things that I'm like, because there's nothing that breeds greatness like competition. There really isn't. That's how America was founded. That's how everybody wants to improve on what somebody else has done. And that's what I love about in regards to physical exertion is the fact that you have, so Shar and I are working out, and say we're doing 100 burpees for time. All right.
I hate burpees.
Everybody does.
I
don't know anybody.
I hate burpees.
Oh, I love they're so good. No. And we both reach 50 at the same time, and then I want to take a break, but she doesn't. So I look over at her, I'm taking a break, she's not, and I'm like, well, I can't take a break. So I go back on it. So that's the type of what's the word I'm looking for? Motivation that competition breeds that I like. But there are a number of different types of, as far as jealousy, as far as vindictiveness, so on and so forth, that I don't like about competition that it can bring up.
So you're empathetic, obviously. How have you gotten to the point where that empathy is a strength rather than a weakness? As far as because your military background, you're alpha male, how do we get to the point where we can connect empathetically, especially guys?
Self-awareness and realizing that empathy is not a negative thing. It's not a weakness.
When did you realize that was a strength rather than a weakness?
About 9.5 months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
You want to tell us?
Well, so I had experienced some loss in regards to I had a breakup, and then my dog of 10 years died.
I'm sorry, that's like a family member.
He was my son. Then after that, I had a very close friend of me die, and I needed somebody to talk to, so I ended up going through therapy. And through therapy, I figured out that one of the biggest things that I do is I empathize with people too much in regards to, somebody has a loss, and I automatically feel that I need to feel that loss right away. And, we can say that it was carried through childhood. We can say that it was it was me reacting to how empathetic I was in the military, so on and so forth, and how much feelings I didn't want to feel. But that's where I was in my life. And so the battle for me actually has been the exact opposite. How not to be as empathetic as I am.
Or just showing up for yourself.
Exactly.
Can you care for others and still provide support?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of my favorite things to do.
But you don't have to take on that burden of
exactly, and
feeling that pain.
Right. That's the key, is understanding that. Just so when somebody's going through something, you need to. The best thing that a human being can do is be there for somebody. But true taking on the burden of their loss is not my job.
Wow, that's pretty profound.
It's my job to be there, but it's not my job to take on the burden.
It's okay for them to go through that experience.
Exactly, because they need to. If they don't go through that experience, then they're just going to bury it. And then we all know what happens when we bury things. It just implodes.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective and a very helpful one, that we can allow people to go through that suffering and be by them as they're suffering.
Well, I mean, what's bad about suffering?
That's a great question. Tell me.
Nothing. I don't think there's anything bad about suffering.
Do we look at suffering as the same as failure in this society?
I think that
we're not supposed to suffer. We're not supposed to fail. We're only supposed to feel those positive emotions. Never the other end of the spectrum.
I mean, so when's the last time you had an amazing day?
Like today?
Today. All right. When's the last time you had a horrible day?
Today.
Now, how did you understand the difference between a horrible day and a great day?
It's like weather. It's there's this storm cloud that brews, and all of a sudden, boom, your heart races, and you're like, I hope this isn't permanent. And then pretty soon the sun comes out, and it can be in the same hour.
No, I totally agree. And how did you know that you were having a great day?
Because, like you said, it's that connection to people. It's like getting outside of yourself and saying, I see you as another. It's so much more interesting to be able to reach out and say, I see you, rather than directing all that vision back into yourself and your own suffering.
Totally understand. I totally agree. But do you think that it could be the fact that you felt what it was like to have a bad day? So you know what a bad day feels like.
Good point.
And then now you feel what it's like to have a great day, and you treasure that.
Yeah.
And without suffering, you can't have that great day.
Wow, I love that perspective, because it is the spectrum of feeling and emotion and being a human being. Why do we not allow ourselves like the full experience of being human?
There's so much I can talk about social media.
Really?
Well, I think that bad days have been have truly been frowned upon in regards to,
Weakness.
Weakness, in regards to pharmaceutical companies wanting to throw tons of antidepressants, tons of other drugs at things that they don't need drugs. They just need us to allow to feel and us allow to work out, not only on ourselves, but with other people.
So you take your people through, as I understand it, you take your people through a process.
I try to. I mean, in regards to a CrossFit gym, it's all physical.
But does it have some parallels with
Yes.
an emotional side of things? Like
Yeah.
the extremes of having a great day, having a terrible day in
Oh,
the same hour?
Yeah, well, maybe not in the same hour, but there'll be people that come in and they have a horrible workout, and they're very down on themselves. And I'm like, why are you down on yourself? You had a horrible workout, but look at what you've done the past week. The reason you probably didn't have that great of a workout is, number one, you haven't rested as much as you should. Number two, maybe you didn't have as much water as you should. Maybe you didn't have as much nutrition. So maybe we need to prepare a little bit more for this workout today. And then I go over, all right, well, we had a bad workout today. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw in some good nutrition. We're going to throw in some good water, some good recovery. Then you're going to come back in 2 days, and you know what you're going to do? You're going to rock that shit. All right? You're going to kill it, because you're recovered. Generally, people think more is better. Most of the time, more isn't better. It's worse.
Talk about that, because I think, once again, that is like stereotypical, oh, you're not busy all the time, or you're not maxing out, or your pedal's not to the metal all the time. How can we change that dialogue?
Great question. I don't know how you change the dialogue, but I know it starts with one person. And it's, I believed since the inception, and I'll go back to CrossFit. I believed from the start of CrossFit, there's been a very negative connotation with it, primarily because people don't understand that there's two types of CrossFit. There's CrossFit, and then there's CrossFit Games. And a lot of people, when they look at CrossFit on TV, they look at CrossFit on Facebook, Instagram, all they see is the games. That's it, because that's what is popular. That's what is out there the most, and that's what looks coolest. But that's not what the general population needs to do, because that's not what the general population, number one, is ready for, and number two, can do. They don't understand how much work being a CrossFit Games athlete is. Those guys go through 5 to 10 hours of training a day.
Like full-time job
It
plus.
It is absolutely a full-time job. You cannot, there are very few people that can have a full-time job and do it. All right. I mean, these guys, that's all they do. And a lot of gyms program CrossFit Games. The problem is in order to do that, and we only have an hour with people, when you do that, you need 30 to 40 minutes of warm-up and mobility. Then you have about an hour to an hour and a half of programming, and then you have another 30 to 40 minutes of mobility and cool down. And when you don't have that stuff on either side, you break down. And with CrossFit itself, it's not like that. It's functional movement. It's randomized movement. The magic is in the movement. It truly is beautiful. And getting somebody to, perform a correct overhead squat or just a correct back squat is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life.
Because there are so many components to that.
So many.
And so many micro movements. Absolutely.
Whether we're talking about mobility, whether we're talking about strength, whether we're talking about balance, stability. I mean, getting somebody to do a overhead squat correctly especially in this day of an age where most people sit for a job or drive long distances or sit in an airplane for a long time, it is one of the hardest things to do because everybody's hunched over, sitting on a computer,
Right.
Whether that be, for accounting or whatever your job is, but most jobs are at a computer. So everybody's this way, and we need to open everybody up.
So tell me a little
figuratively
bit.
and
Yeah, I was like, being in here makes me sit up straight. Tell me about mind-body connection and how you use that with your clients, and maybe talk a little bit about Revive and how that fits into your programming.
So I just found Revive a few months ago, and I haven't started it with the general population yet. And honestly, I haven't started the true mind-body with my general population. I've started it with a men's group that I'm doing. And the men's group that I'm doing, I'm taking, a selective number to go through what I hope to, in the end, be a 60-day process. And right now it's just 30 days. Because honestly, I just want to see how it works. I'm just kind of throwing these 10 guys in and saying, hey, this is what I want you to do.
Tell us a little bit about what they're doing. I mean, can you reveal some of the things?
Yeah. Well, a little bit of it.
How you got started? Like, what did you see? From men? Why were you just like, hey, let's get this men's group going?
This is fascinating.
Well, that's going to be personal. So, as I was kind of telling you about last year a little bit, I went through some really hard times, and the one thing that I generally try to pride myself in is preparation. And in no way, shape, or form was I prepared for it. And like, I've never in my life been as down as I was. I was like, I'd show up to my gym and I was just a mummy. I'd show up at my house and, I had this brand new puppy at the time, Brick, cutest damn thing in the world. And I was in my bed, in
the fetal position.
Yeah. Covers over my head, blinds drawn.
Believe it or not, guys can relate to that. I have a lot of boys, and
Yeah.
I'm married to a dude, and I've seen those places where they've been like covers over the head, like blinds drawn, and it's not something that's public knowledge or that we talk about.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. And the last thing that I thought that it was okay. The last thing that I thought is that I could reach out, because I saw people. I understood that, like, when I'm at my gym, I like to call myself the mayor. All right, because I know everybody. I go around to everybody, say hi to everybody. But I knew I wasn't doing that. But nobody said anything. So I felt that everybody kind of knew, but nobody accepted it, and nobody wanted to help me. So nobody felt that it was okay that I was going through what I was going through. And my business started going down. Everything started going down. Personal relationships, my business, family, everything in my life. And this is for a pretty good period of time. And then somebody helped me. Somebody, pretty much took a bucket of water and threw it in my, I'm going to watch my language, threw it on me pretty much. And said, what are you doing? And meanwhile, I'm in the fetal position, in my bed. And I realized that, nobody's going to do this for me. I have to do this for myself because I'm better than this. And I need to figure stuff out.
So that's a scary place for a dude.
It was so scary. It was, I honestly, because I was either going to come out or I was going to stay there. I wasn't going to when you're going through something like that, you're either going to come out of it or you're going to keep going down in that hole. And if there's one thing I wanted to do, like, I've been wanting to come out of it since I got there. I mean, I remember looking at my text messages and just saying, I need to respond, but I can't. That's how debilitating that can be.
It was like a paralysis.
Yeah, total paralysis. And the very first thing that I did was, I want to say it was like around 9:15 at night on a Friday. No, yeah, it was a Friday. I went into my gym and I did some snatches. I just got moving. And then I got moving. And then I remembered a couple weeks, maybe a month and a half prior, Shar was like, hey, Greg, I got this really cool supplement for you. And I hate supplements. I've been in the fitness industry for probably 14, 15 years. And the first 6, all I did was pedal subs. Whether it be pre-workout, whether it be protein, whatever. I peddled everything. And the past 4 years, I have not sold any supplements at my gym. And the primary reason why is I can't trust a supplement. Generally, I feel that they're full of shit, in all actuality, in regards to the scientific basis behind it, the ingredients that they have in it, and all their claims, because that's what it is. And so that's what I thought about this until I actually tried it. And I talked with Shar, and she's like, hey, here's the number, blah, blah, blah. And I got it.
You really have to try it, though. And because I would talk to him, and he would still be coming out of the space. And I said, hey, have you tried Revive? Have you put it in your morning routine yet? Or he's like, no, I need to, or I've done it like 1 or 2 days. I'm like, yeah, I can tell. I am so excited for you to try this because you're just coming out of this. And it's such a supportive tool.
It is. It's like a fog clearer.
It is. And so I kept checking in. And then finally I kind of gave up. And then
you did.
He called me one day and he's like, this is amazing. I'm like, I know, I've been telling you for like 3 weeks, but go ahead.
No, yeah. Sometimes if you just listen to somebody
who cares about you,
then you'll find that, holy shit, they're right. And, but yeah, I had kind of messed around with it one day here, one day there. And then I loaded it for 5 days, and then it was nuts. It was like, all right, so there's a screen right here. It was like everything just opened up, and a lot like earlier today where it was totally cloudy, the sun came out and I was able to focus. And I started having ideas, and I started getting excited about certain things that I hadn't gotten excited about in a long time. And I started taking back certain things that I had let go, for a long time, my gym programming. I decided a while ago that I was going to let that go. I was going to allow my gym to get programmed by somebody else. And, blame on me, because that's something that I love to do. And
so you'd kind of let parts of yourself go.
Absolutely. Oh, I let not parts. Yeah, I didn't let parts go. I let everything go. And all of a sudden I just felt the desire again. People used to call me Coach G. All right. Because that's who I was. I was this excitable guy, and the one thing I wanted everybody to do was, number 1, have fun, and number 2, come together, and number 3, get a great workout and reach their goals. And I hadn't been that for quite some time. And
did people mention to you that they noticed that part of you had exited?
Some. But the problem, I think, that with a lot of personal trainers and a lot of coaches and a lot of leaders, actually, is that we feel the need to put on this persona that everything is okay, primarily because we shape everything else. Mm-hmm. Like, every part of my business is me. And, any small business owner can identify with that. Because if you're on, the business is on. But if you're not, the business is off.
Well, you are the business.
No, exactly.
You're the institution.
You're it.
You're it.
And the longer you go without truly, finding out what is wrong with you, the worse off not only you are, but the business is.
So what did you notice when Greg started taking Revive, as an observer?
Mm-hmm. I think it was really similar, and you had already mentioned it. It's like I had all these ideas. I remember going to a meeting, as I mentioned last time I was here, going to a meeting, and my boss had mentioned, whoa, the idea train is just back on the rails here. And that's what I saw from him. He just, I want to go back to your story too with, your struggles. And I think our struggles show us what our future successes will look like.
Wow. And that would be a cool book.
I just thought of that while he was talking. Greg's
book idea.
Yes. I have a few. I think Greg's struggles have shown him a new way to succeed. He's better now than he was, and he will continue to get better. It doesn't mean that your existing self is bad or not good. Failure shows us that there's a better way, and there's a new bar that has been set. And so that's what I see from him. He just had all these ideas and was calling me all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to do this men's group, and how's your women's group going? Let's get them together. And I'm like, yes, this is amazing. So I just saw the regular Greg come back, and he was focused. And I think it's a lot to do with his vulnerability and asking for help from other people. And I totally agree with leaders. We don't, and moms, right? Mm-hmm. Moms do this too, where you have to pretend, or you don't have to, but some people pretend that everything's okay, because you are the leader. And
we see that. We see very famous people who are at the top of their game commit suicide. And it's
absolutely.
Kate Spade,
right.
Anthony Bourdain. We're like, what the heck if they commit suicide? Then what about the rest of us schmucks, right? They've reached the top of their game. Now what? So what you're saying is that's a dangerous place to be at times, because we can't expose the cracks.
And I think there's this view, and you said it, we can't expose the cracks. And I think that's wrong. I think the number one thing you need to do is expose the cracks, especially if you're a leader.
Wow. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Oh, a very hard pill, but you got to be humble about it. You have to understand within yourself that the reason that people have sought out your leadership, all right, isn't because you're great all the time. It's because you've been down a road and you've had your faults, but you've succeeded.
So, okay, be completely honest, Greg. When you reached out for help, what was the result? What happened? Did people see that as a weakness?
Certain people did. Certain people did. And I realized that those were certain people I didn't need in my life. I realized that those were certain clients I didn't need, that I didn't want.
So it was really a redefinition.
Absolutely.
Of where you were going.
Yeah. I think that whether you're a business or whether you're a person, every now and then, I don't think a total redefinition is needed, but you've experienced stuff, and certain definitions will stick and certain won't, and you do need to redefine certain things about yourself every now and then.
So you had a lot to lose, basically. You had a lot to lose by stepping up and saying, I need help.
I had everything to lose. I mean...
Why was it worth the risk?
Because... so laughing is a coping mechanism of mine, which I love. Because
I mean, that's a huge risk for guys to take, is to say, I need help. Like, they can lose everything, right?
Because I had been trying to help myself for a long time, and it didn't work. It just didn't work.
So you were losing anyway.
I was losing everything, you know? And so in regards to asking for help, I had no other option. Nothing. I either asked for help or I didn't.
That sounds pretty serious. Like,
oh, it was extremely serious.
Like, there were two paths. You were going to pick one.
I was either going to pick the right or the wrong one. In my mind, you know, whether that is totally truth or not, I don't care. I just know that when I was at that junction, I was either going to step out of it or I was going to go deeper in it.
So what's been the results since?
I'm a lot fucking happier.
So it was it paid off. Ultimately, in the end, it paid off. You have a new trail you're blazing. You have new opportunities. You have new clients in your world. Like, reassure us who are at that juncture of, like, you know, I'll keep my pride and not ask for help and see if I can just muscle through this.
Well, like, I think I remember. So
what's the payoff? What's the payoff been for you?
I'm a lot happier. I've been having to work a lot harder lately, which is awesome. But, you know, I see a horizon, whereas before I didn't. You know, I see, you know, a sunrise instead of a sunset.
Is that part of the reason you're working with these men now? Oh,
it's every reason. Like, every reason that I'm developing this men's group is because of what I went through. Every reason that I'm developing an adaptive athlete program that I am is because of what I went through. Because I know that there's a lot of and the only reason I'm starting a men's group is because I'm a guy. My hope is after I develop this that I can also start one for women as well. I'm the biggest dude in the world.
So, like, how can guys get involved? Are you still in the beta stage of this, or can they, like, there's a lot of guys out there who are okay with asking for help if it's in a safe environment, right?
Oh,
so how, like,
but I don't think a lot of guys know that they can. Like, I think that there was probably a lot of people still in my life that I could have asked for help, but I didn't think it was okay. I didn't think it was all right for me to say, hey, I can't handle this. I can't do this. I'm absolutely miserable and I don't know where I'm going. It's like you're diving, all right, 150 feet underwater and you have vertigo. You don't know which way is up.
Wow, that could be dangerous. You can end up drowning.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of guys, and honestly, I think a lot of females, just don't know that it's okay.
What's the first step in acknowledging that there's an okayness with being broken? What's the first step?
Knowing where you're at. Understanding that
life sucks.
that life sucks sometimes, and it's okay.
It's okay.
It's fine. Man, what was that movie, Parenthood? I remember one of the things that got in my head is I remember the grandpa talking to Steve Martin, who is the dad, and saying, hey, actually, I can't remember if it's grandpa or grandma, but he was like, hey, life is a roller coaster. You know, it has its ups, it has its downs, you know, but that's what makes it exciting, you know, and I forgot for a long time that you can't have those awesome ups without a few downs.
Do you think you'd be more willing to ask for help now, having gone through what you went through? Like, rather than hit the floor, maybe when you're just still feeling the pinch a little bit.
Yeah, I see myself doing that now over the past few months where, you know, there's a lot of things in the things that I want to do that I just don't know. So honestly, right now, it's me trying to figure out what is asking too much and what is asking too little in regards to help.
Well, isn't that like isn't that the point of the game?
Absolutely.
I mean,
I
as
agree with that.
as a CrossFit client, wouldn't that be the point of the game entirely? Is like how much to depend on your coach and when to know
Right.
like that you're safe to do that move on your own.
Exactly. I agree with that.
So like you're like the epitome of awesome. Really like
No,
like
I'm
really
just
and Shar, I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but women like that balance of vulnerability and strength, and they like I happen to be lucky enough to be married to a guy who's honest enough to say life sucks, I'm struggling right now. And luckily Revive for him is like he can go about 2 days and then he and everybody else around him will be like, dude,
Yeah.
like put that Revive in. Because what we see is things get way worse if he doesn't take care of the basics.
Right.
Because just because he's like an awesome dude doesn't mean he doesn't have those like total crash and burn times.
Yeah.
It's just that knowing that he can express that
Right.
or ask for help is not a weakness. And I think like you're such an amazing individual and a human being for allowing this to be the topic of discussion, especially like in like today when I'm guaranteeing you everybody is suffering from some major loss. Everybody that you run across is suffering from some major loss. I was talking to a kid today, 12-year-old, and he was from Iraq, and he said, the things that I've seen, the things that I've been through, mind-blowing some of the stuff that he told me, like people with guns came in, pointed a gun at his grandma's head and said, we'll take your house. We don't know the people that were walking around and the extreme suffering that humans are going through, and that, you know, that we can connect on a like a really intimate basis and feel more connected to each other. What I'm gathering from this conversation is the cracks are okay. Like that's where the light gets in, right?
Exactly. I think that if you don't have any cracks, then you're lying. You know,
Whoa.
I think that if you say that you're the greatest person in the world, you're lying. I think that if you say that there's nothing that, not that there's nothing that you can't accomplish, but that everything that you do is right, I think you're lying. Not only to yourself, but to everybody else.
Well, how do you guys see your positions in the future? Because you're servant-oriented leaders, because you bring people together in a very different way than I think leadership has been defined in the past. How do you see this movement growing of really connecting people just because we need to be connected as human beings?
Well, this is the thing. I don't think that we're breeding new ground at all. I think that we're reapplying what used to be in regards to true human connection. Because I think over the past 15, 20 years, true human connection has gone down.
Well, studies show that military guys feel connected when they're deployed because they have to, right? They come back here and everything like blows apart. They're connected to nothing. And that's the PTSD part is like, what do I belong to? What am I a part of?
Because everybody's off on their cell phones. Everybody's off on whatever app they're in. You know, you go to any doctor's office in the world right now and you'll see 15 people in it and you'll see 15 people on their damn phone. You go to any bar in Salt Lake City and you'll see people A, on their phone taking selfies, and B, on their phone on Instagram. You know, and what about that person right in front of you?
Yeah, we threw out a really fun question. We were having kind of a discussion between men and women on how men view women and maybe some derogatory comments, or like what a man does when they see another man do these things, right? And some really cool questions came out of that. And one was, you know, someone commented and said, you know, we feel like we're not heard or seen either. It's not just women. And I asked the question, I said, what can we do as women to show up for you as a man? And he
Whoa.
brought it, yeah.
That's cool.
And I think
It was a great question.
rather than divide the sexes, which I feel like is happening right now with lack of connection, right? We're just reading all of the arguments and voicing our opinions about the modern day woman or modern day man or what a relationship should look like. And he brought up a good point. He had mentioned that, you know, I think the number one comments we had heard, including his, was, you know, women, we want to see you be more self-confident. We want you to make decisions. We want you to tell us how to treat you. We want you to show up, and we want you to be confident. And then we heard from the women saying, we want to hear vulnerability from men.
Whoa.
So you get confidence coming our direction and vulnerability coming towards men.
Yeah, as
from
women, we
men.
don't see that as a weakness. We see that as an opportunity to connect.
Yeah.
Because that's like innate in most women, is that ability to like want to help, want to connect, and want to like provide resources, like Shar offering you her solution.
Absolutely.
So that is
It's cool.
awesome.
I think just that's just one example, but I think, you know, not being afraid to ask how you can be better in someone's life, and just, hey, let's not even talk about this issue. How can I hear you right now? Like, how can I show up? How can I help you? Because what we're talking about isn't really what we're talking about, and it's been fun. So. I congratulate you on making it through the fog, Greg.
That's an exciting place to be able to take that, like, just that broken sense of pain that's so human, right?
You're right.
It's such a human part of our experience to be that crushed and that in pain, and to say and acknowledge, like, it's fine. It's fine to feel that.
Right.
Like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's part of the human condition. And to be able to take that and say, it's okay. You're going to feel that again someday, and you're going to know some of the skills to be able to deal with it, and that it is like weather. It does pass.
No, it does.
And as we talk about suicide prevention, these conversations become huge and essential. Will you keep us posted on how these groups go, because it's a cool movement that you're involved in?
I am. I'm really stoked. I mean, we're on week 2 right now of the first group, and it's funny. Just a little sneak peek. The number one of the first, I give them assignments, and the very first assignment for the first week is, excuse my language, clean your shit up. And before they leave the house, one of the number one things they have to do is make their bed. And
that's a military.
Well, but it's just setting yourself straight for the day. And I'm sorry, but there's nothing better than coming home tired and getting into a fresh made bed. And that's been one of the hardest thing. And 2, one of the biggest differences that I've seen in people. So it really is the little things that matter the most. Yeah.
So in conclusion, like, what parting words would you say that you both learned in the last 6 months, and that you want to take, because you've both experienced some pretty gnarly pain? How is this pain going to translate into a new trajectory for each of you?
I think for me, it made me realize that my low is not even close to what my lowest of lows is, and what I'm capable of doing in that space. It breaks new ground for the future success. It may not feel like it right now, and I'm still dealing with it, and I'm allowing myself to be not okay.
So it's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not want to go to the grocery store. It's okay to not make it to the gym. I haven't been to the gym in 2-3 weeks.
You owe me so many burpees.
I know. But it's okay to start with making your bed. Start with calling a friend. Start with telling someone your story. Start listening to friends who've been there. Just start. So I think this is just a starting point for me to learn more lessons.
So it really does start with the little things, the tiniest
start.
things. Just start making your bed. What about you, Greg? What parting words have you learned about like the lowest of the low being a catalyst for a new purpose?
Have you ever seen the movie What About Bob?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a family fave. We actually have it memorized.
No, it's a great movie, and I think more people need to watch it. And the main reason why I say that is baby steps. I think Bill Murray in that is probably one of the greatest philosophers of all time, in regards to what he said in that, in regards to baby steps, because people think feeling pain is bad.
Yeah.
But it's not. I think feeling pain is good, and understanding that, and understanding the pain, the type of pain that you're feeling is needed in order to move on. And the biggest thing I take away from what I've felt over the past 6-8 months is it takes baby steps in order to get over that pain. You're not going to get, for the longest time, I tried getting over it right away. You know, I was like, all right, I feel horrible right now. When I wake up the next morning, new day, I'm going to feel great. That's not how it goes. You know, you need to take baby steps in order to get to where you want to feel. Revive was one of those baby steps for me.
Yeah.
You know, making my bed was one of those baby steps for me. And the more you concentrate on just taking the smallest step, you know, I mean, Neil Armstrong, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. He wasn't lying. So that's the biggest thing that I take away from it, is you're not trying to change your whole self in an hour period. You got to understand that it's going to take a lot of steps in order to reach the conclusion of your journey. And then what sucks about the conclusion of your journey? It's just the first chapter.
It's just the first chapter.
Exactly. Well, and actually, that doesn't suck. That's awesome.
So it's a redefinition. Every day is a redefinition. Baby steps.
You can redefine who you are any day.
Wow.
You just have to take a look at yourself and do it.
Wow. That's been such an enlightening conversation, and like I am really excited to follow your journey in making the pain that you've both experienced a catalyst for something that changes your life and the lives of others. So from Next Set and our crew, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Char.